Well, hello everyone, and welcome. On today's podcast episode, we have Anung of Courageous Creativity, who helps introverts and Black Sheeps create their own spaces on their own terms. I love it. This is what I'm all about. So thanks for being here today, Anung. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, can you give us a bit of, of your story? And as I tell all my guests, we like the long version. Of course, we don't want to go too long, but I do like the longer version of, how you got to doing what you are today, and why are you called to help introverts and Black sheep create their own space on their own terms?
So, okay, I guess I'll go a little farther back than some people hear about me, but like I went to college and I I switched majors like several times because nothing was quite fitting. And I graduated and thought I was doing fine, but I thinking if I wanted to go into academia, I needed to get into grad school, I needed to get a doctorate, and that was right after like the bubble popped. So like most programs are like taking one or two new students per department.
Hmm.
Well, that means there was in my class alone like 6,000 people with the College of Liberal Arts, and there was only like maybe a couple hundred departments in the world. So we're like, okay, that pretty much means I'm not getting in.
Oh wow, yeah.
And so I did a lot of bouncing around trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I I mostly worked in customer service. I worked in I I've worked in four different bookstores. I've worked in different cafes. I've worked in hotels. I've had a horrible 8 months of my life working at a Walmart.
Mm,
And in the process, I would work full time, part time, depending on what was really needed, but I kept exploring of what I wanted to do. I wanted something creative. I wanted something that wasn't normal because I just couldn't. I knew I never wanted to work in an office. I knew I never wanted
yep.
to have like a big corporation as like
Hmm.
my main job that I was going to do for most of my life because I don't like people, which is the funniest thing I always tell people because like you worked customer service, like I'm great at lying. Like that's the introvert in me. I don't like it was training. This is my training in my life so I can get along in the world, but I don't like most people. I don't want them in my life and in my world kind of thing. And honestly, I tried different things. I tried being a copywriter. I tried being a social media manager. I've tried all the different ones that most people, if you searched online, especially like 5, 6 years ago, about which ways you can make money online, which ways are the easiest things, and all those things. And I was not good at any of them at
Okay.
all.
So you're still trying to fit yourself into a box again, right?
Yeah, because of course the box was always you had only these options of like
Yeah.
you had to be a blogger and sell ads. You had to be that was kind of the beginning of like the Instagram model thing, and I'm kind of like I don't really fit the mold of that, and I'm kind of like I don't have any clothes that would fit that either. So I'm kind of like I don't want to go into I want to go be poor just so I can make clothes so I can put pictures out there and get harassed by people. And I just honestly it just kept kind of it was a lot of back and forth of just trying things. I did my first blog. See, my business is 4 years old, so that was like 5 and 6 years ago. Was the first blog, which was I am embarrassed about it, not ashamed, but embarrassed because it was ugly. It had no direction. It was kind of like travel lifestyle. I talked about dogs sometimes. It was just a jumble. I was not doing anything good with it. No one read it, but it kind of gave me the idea of like I like what I get from it. I like what I'm giving, and that kind of gave me a better idea of what I wanted to do. And of course, I finally did the smart thing. I got a coach to help me.
Hmm.
I actually got a business coach, and she gave me all the really good questions to ask, all the really good things to kind of look through. And that's how I got my first business, which when I first started was not the same as what it is now. I mostly started to talk about just it was still kind of lifestyle, but I was going towards a direction, and I randomly started a clothing line with it,
Okay. Okay.
which I still have. But it's just kind of one of those things I kept trying new things because I wanted to see what it felt, what it was, what it feel like for me, but also what I was giving to other people, like what was working best for them with what was working best with me. Like that was kind of the thing that I didn't see enough in the world of like it had to have the best for the both of us.
Mm.
Of like who's ever receiving it had to get the best from me, but also I had to get the best from it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so it
Yeah.
took a couple of years of going through my business of like working through of like okay, I'm start talking about introverts because I got tired of running my blog because it was just I felt so tedious about it.
Okay.
Which I started my first podcast, and that actually blew up after a year because I was the only podcast out there about introverts that wasn't like psychology based. Like I have humor in it, which people found hilarious. I have like funny stories in there where some people were kind of like, "Oh my god, I've done that." Like I have one that probably my biggest one, like my third season, was called "Avoiding People 101," and I literally have like funny stories of like this is like the I always have these are the levels. These are the levels. Everyone can do level one. Only certain people can do two, and very few people can do three. Like I've done all those because I have no shame. Like I have had times where I've jumped out of windows to get away from somebody.
Oh my gosh.
I have I have actually almost got myself hurt at a zoo because I'm like I know that person from like 8th grade, even though I'm a freaking adult. I don't know if they ever recognize me or anything else, but I don't want to talk to them. It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna go over here and I'm practically over the fence and there's a tiger over there. And the tiger's looking at me like, you coming in here? Ooh. And so it turned into all these different things of like I was listening to myself at the same time of listening to everyone else.
Mhm.
And now I am a podcaster, writer, and I call it guide because I don't really think I do coaching
Okay.
per se because I don't do one-on-one work with people. I do certain lessons. I teach either with other people's group coaching or I do it in
Mhm.
my book or I do in my recordings. So I
Okay.
give them kind of like that idea. So I
Mhm.
don't really again, that's the introvert in me. I don't want to talk to too many people. So I can't do one-on-one.
Gotcha. So you're helping people because that's kind of where you were before, right? You're helping the people of, the introverts and the people who are trying to figure out their own way, kind of like you did, right? Over the last
Yeah, and
several
I think
years.
that's kind of a good chunk of people
Yeah,
they find what they're looking for because they had the problem.
exactly. Yeah, same here as well. Yeah. So if we just go back a bit to college, um, so did you already know that you were for sure going to go to college? Was that a given, or did you kind of make that decision on your own?
Um, it was a decision on myself, but it was kind of I was just following everyone else because there was nothing another option. Like no one in my family was like pressuring me because I was the first
Okay.
in my family to go to college. I had a couple other ones who went to get their associate's degree, but I was going for a full year, full bachelor's, everything else. I was the first one, so they were all kind of like, "That'd be great. It'd be great for the community, especially on my dad's side, because Asian people are always kind of like, school, go get the money."
Okay.
And I wanted to do that, which sadly, when I went into first, I couldn't get into because it was even a smaller area, and honestly, it was very hard to get into without connections, and it was also very white,
Mhm.
which I know some people looking at me, I'm passed for white for the most part. I mix. But every once in a while you get certain things you're kind of like they can tell like, "Oh yeah, you're not completely white." And that's always a problem cuz strange enough I get some people thinking like I lied to them about it like
Oh, really?
like my heritage is not your problem. Like I'm here doing a job with you. Like we're fine.
Yeah, exactly. So did you end up finishing college?
Yeah. I
You
got
did.
my I got my degree in history, archaeology, and anthropology.
Okay.
So I went a little overboard,
Okay.
which is the strangest thing. Like everyone thought I'd like wasted my time there. I'm like, no, I learned critical thinking. I learned what I did and did not want in life. But also I studied abroad for a year. Like, really, you're gonna tell me living in Ireland for a year was a waste?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I learned my love of photography there, which I do as a side hustle.
Okay.
And I actually what actually helped fund me going abroad as I actually took pictures for my archaeology professor in Minnesota. Because then I was like, he partially paid for me. Partially paid for me to go to Scotland because there was an exhibit there. He wanted pictures for his lecture. I'm kind of like, oh sure, yeah, pay for me to go to Scotland. Yeah, that no, I'm never gonna do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so every once in a while I go like I only keep in touch with him every once in a while still. But if I go somewhere, I'm letting him know like, hey, do you know anything there? Like he'll pay for the pictures or he'll get me into an exhibit or something else. Like I actually got to do I actually had my photography put into a archaeology magazine because I he got me into an old archaeological site that they only had like select grad students in, so for me to take pictures,
Okay.
which is like the funniest thing ever. Because then I'm like, I still get to do my archaeology love, but I get to do photography, and they're paying me to do it.
Awesome. Like combining so many things that you love into one and then
Yeah,
making money with it. That's like the best ever.
I know. A lot of people are kind of like, can you pick one thing? No, I
No.
I have the attention span to do so. One, I don't have children. I'm not great at dating. Like I was married. I was together with one guy and married for almost 10 years. So like I was able to do all this stuff with him too. So I'm like that didn't hold me back in any way. It's just it's what I like to do. I don't like
Mhm.
focusing on one thing. And that everyone else doesn't have to. Like if you have the same like doesn't everyone else do that? Like you having a job and having kids and having a social life, that's still technically your life doing more than one thing.
Totally. Yeah. So you get to choose to do what you want to do, right?
Yes. That's
So
pretty much what I want.
love it. And that's I think that's the most important thing for that I want to share with people is, like you don't have to fit into the box and, like what you're supposed to do and all the social constructs and everything. Just kind of listen to yourself and create what you want. So I love that, as okay, you started your first blog, you found okay what you did like there, what you didn't, and then you shaped it as you went along. So everything's not going to be clear at the beginning, right? No matter what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, or if it's, changing jobs, finding a relationship, everything it's just going to be step by step and figuring out what you like and what you don't like, and then going from there. And then that's just going to help create your clarity and get you to where you want to be. So I
Yeah,
love
and that's
that.
the thing. Like it's never failures. It's a learning opportunity, and if something doesn't actually goes wrong, just adjust the plan, not the dream.
Yeah. You're not going to have everything figured out from day one, and that's okay.
No, and that's the point of life. That's it's the journey. Like you're not supposed to like by the time you turn 18, you all of a sudden don't have like a full grown family, a house, and a six-figure job. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's like the dream. Oh gosh. Anyway, so if you didn't finish university, your degree, do you think that you would have had kind of flack from people for not doing that?
Oh yeah. There have been definitely people because of the idea of like I wasted that money or I wasted these people's time. And the worst part too, because some people they just assume because my mom is white that she paid for it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's still I had to do all the loans. I'm the one paying for it all. It's I get there's a lot of the idea that like that if you don't finish anything, somehow you failed in life. And if I really didn't finish it, it would have been my choice because
Mhm.
I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it. I wasn't learning what I wanted to learn. And
Mhm.
that's the point. Like I know several people who are great at what they do in life. They found what they wanted after just dropping out of school because it wasn't what they needed. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of good things out there that does not require a college degree. Because honestly, for a lot of things out there, a college like just getting your bachelor's is the equivalent before what it is now is the equivalent of getting having your master's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It
And like
really doesn't make any
yeah. I say now, like, I mean, I went to university, so maybe it's easy for me to say. I say, education's kind of overrated, but maybe it's because I have the education that I can say from experience now I feel it's overrated. But anyway, I know that, it's given me a lot of opportunities in my life so far. But what I really want to share with people too is that, I graduated just because of kind of the school system where I was and everything. I graduated from high school at 16. I went to university. I had my first degree at 20 years old. Like, who knows what they wanna do for the rest of their life at 20? Maybe some people, but a
Mhm.
very, very small percentage. So I think that, forcing or really strongly encouraging, kids or teens to go to college or university right out of high school, I think I would take a different approach now, you know.
No, and the thing I always tell people, like, I am a strange person, but I love reading medical journals. I got on it in college and I didn't stop paying for it since. But like they have research showing that your brain does not stop developing until you're 21, 22. So that's why they're telling people like you shouldn't be making huge life decisions. Really shouldn't be getting married because more times than not you're not going to stick with the marriage because you're still learning, you're still developing. Like honestly, people don't realize a woman's breast still grows until their 20s.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Yeah,
know
some
that.
people think like, oh, once you hit puberty at 14, 15, 16, then they're done. Like, no, there are times it still grows. It just might be like random spurts or only one. But that's
Yeah.
it's like it's still going. It just you may not notice it because it could just be so small. But
Mhm.
if you pay attention to it, and there's actual research saying that, like, why worry about all the things you're gonna do in life when everything else on your body is not even done?
Exactly. And yeah, like you said, making these big life decisions so young. I think that's probably why a lot of people end up in careers that they end up changing or stay miserable in for the rest of their life, whatever, which is sad. But because it can take courage to leave a career, especially if you're someone who has the family already, and then it's can be a little more difficult to make a transition because of the financial obligations and things. So there's so many scenarios, but it can be a challenge, and I get that. But I just want people to still have hope that they can change if they want
Yeah,
to.
it just means the steps are going to be smaller and there's going to be more time in between. But you can still get out of that. You can still find a way to save your way up. You start a hustle, get other income coming in until you get to a place that you can afford to not have it to either build a business up or or just get on another job or
Mhm.
get all the training you need to do something else. Like it just takes a little bit longer. It doesn't mean it's going to not happen. It's just not going to happen now, which some people can't handle.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know I've been that impatient person for quite some time. I've learned patience over the last few years and accepted things as they are. It's still going to happen, but just not tomorrow or yesterday like I would have wanted it to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my thing too is when I started writing, it wasn't like I was so worried about it. I was so like I'm not going to be great at it. I'm like, but I was never started out great with anything I did. Yeah, it kind of helped. It hurt me because when I was younger, I was really good at all like physical activity. It's like any sport that came up, I was good at. Like I wasn't great, but I was good enough, so it was never like a problem for me. And so in my mind, I was kind of like that was equated into, well, I'm not a great writer, so why should I start? But I'm kind of like I always go through my head of like, well, I never was potty trained unless I was learned. So I'm like, why can't I? Like we always have the shame that only as we were younger should we be learning things. Like we should be constantly learning as we're older. We should have the same mindset of like we're gonna suck. It's gonna be hard at first and then it'll get easier. It always gets easier. Like
It does.
we've all had jobs where we didn't know what we were doing. Like our especially like our very first job, just being on your feet all day or learning a new system, all those different things. Like it's exhausting. Even if you were sitting down the whole time, it's exhausting.
Mhm. No, that's such a great point that you bring up. I've never really thought of it that way before, but yeah, when we're young, we're expecting that it's normal that we're going to have learning curves and it's going to go slow, we make mistakes. But why don't we give ourselves that grace when we're adults?
Yeah, because we're supposed to have everything figured out by now. Like being an adult means no mistakes, supposedly. I'm kind of like, are you kidding me? I make more mistakes as an adult than I did as a child. It's just
Yeah.
I'm better at lying now.
Great. So I also want to talk about, kind of um when we're younger, we said, we don't really know what we want to do. And I think it's because we don't really know ourselves as well. Um, or I know, we kind of we want to fit in with our friends and, society and what other people, because we don't want to stand out, because we don't want to bring that attention to ourselves and whatnot. But any thoughts that you have there about kind of connecting with yourself and knowing yourself, from a younger age, like your teens or your late teens, then into adulthood?
I guess part of it's going to be I always tell people like understand where you're at, but don't be invested too far into it because you're going to be changing a lot. Like between when I was 16 to 18 was a lot of change, and then from my 18 till I was like 22 was astronomical. Of
Mm,
like my mindset, what I did and did not allow in my life, what I thought was like good, what I thought was important. Like when I thought I was really younger, I was like, oh, I'm gonna live in the city and I'm gonna have a good apartment. And I'm kind of like, now that I'm like, by the time I was like 22, 23, I'm kind of like, I don't want to be around that many people. What was I thinking?
okay.
Or like the idea of like, that's really expensive. I have no idea what the amount of like things cost and how I was gonna have to work to afford any of that. Strangely enough, when I was younger, I was a 15. Yeah, I was 15, and I with a friend we started like a year project, and I was lucky that I had friends who were very introspective, which made it easier for me to learn about myself. And she did a project where she drew something every day for a full year.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I was kind of like, well, I'm not artistic at all. My drawings are worse than like stick figures. So I went through. I'm kind of like, okay, I'll just try journaling. And I journaled literally. Told myself I have to journal 3 pages every single day for a full year, and I actually did it. Even if I didn't do it every single day, I did it like every other. It's still great because
Mm,
I forced myself to think about what happened during the day. I had to put my feelings in there because 3 pages is a lot. If you just
mhm,
talked about what happened like at school, you can easily do that in a page or two. And the third page is what you kind of open up to of like why this happened or was I feeling or just processing stuff. Like in that like the first like month of it was definitely hard and it was just kind of like basic facts and I was just trying to get it done. But like the farther along I got, the more I explored myself. The more I was okay with where I was going with certain things or kind of like I don't like this and at that point I didn't know why.
mm,
And some of those times, like some of those problems, it took me a couple of years to work through it.
okay.
If I wasn't journaling, I wouldn't have been able to because there's no way I was going to be able to talk to anyone about it because it was for the big thing that I always kind of had a problem with. Like I did not want to date when I was younger,
Mhm,
and that was not a thing for like a teenager. You're like, well, you're supposed to start dating now. Like that's how what you're supposed to do. Like for me, I'm like, no, I just I want to do stuff with my friends. I want to do stuff for me
mm.
because especially in by that time, I have moved over 22 times in my life.
Oh, wow.
And so by that point, that was the long and that school, that was the longest I've lived in one place at one time.
Okay.
So that was kind of like I was already feeling like I'm gonna be moving soon, which I did like a year later. So I was like prophetic like with that, like so. But
Okay.
the idea that I wasn't going to allow myself to date, like I was gonna allow myself not to date because I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like I was gonna get anything out of it. I didn't have any drive to do so. Like I had the idea of like, yeah, I'd like to date in the like the teen romantic sense of I would love to get someone hold my hand and cuddling and someday being kissed and like those romantic things you see in movies and books about like
Yeah.
what they do when like the first date and stuff and like I like the idea of that, but partially was all kind of like cringed it. And it took me a while to kind of go through that. Like I actually did not start dating until I was 21.
Okay.
And I'm so happy I did. I didn't have any of the like I've had no horrible like kissing frog stories, awful people. Like the person I started dating, which yes, it's not saying much that he is my now ex-husband. He started out great. Like it was other things that came into the process before we divorced and everything else, but it's like we were both mature enough. He already had direction in his life. I had my direction in life. Like we were old enough to really kind of figure out of like this is the direction we're going. This is how we fit in together. There's still a lot of learning, but there was still the idea of like if I started sooner, I would have had more problems. I would have honestly I might have would have allowed being treated worse because I wouldn't have known what was good, what was bad because I didn't have any good examples in my life for the most part, and none of my friends were uh they never had any like serious relationships.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have had any examples with them, and they were all very kind of like, oh my god, boyfriends, and I'm just kind of like, don't touch me.
Yeah. So by this time, you like kind of already had done, some self-reflection, and you kind of knew who you were and what you liked and what you didn't like, and it was more in touch, from the journaling that you had done earlier on. So that was probably
Yeah,
a big factor in helping you out with that too. That's great.
yeah, and luckily I had more supportive family members, and my closest friends are most supportive to me. With they know I'm weird. My mom's kind of like, oh god, like, oh god, I what's the worst part? I have a weird daughter, or I have someone who like, you don't do drugs, like that is the only thing I have to like. She's had nothing to complain about. Like, you could be doing drugs, really, you could. It's like, yeah, so I'm gonna sit in my room and read, so don't complain.
That's so funny. I guess I can't remember how well I would have been, but I remember, my mother saying, maybe even recently too. She's like, Charlotte, I don't know where you come from. It's like I'm a little different. I think they're from the rest of the family, but hey, whatever. It's
And
what
that's the
makes.
point, because like that's the black sheep. Like, my mom was adamant that I wasn't gonna start dating until I was 15, which she's like, that's the rule. I'm kind of, that was a wasted rule on me, because I wasn't. After a while, she was kind of like, are you gonna start yet? But of course, she was trying to break the cycle, because my mom was a teen mom. Most of her sisters all had kids in their teens. She still graduated high school. She got she's a nurse, so she kept her stuff together. I was actually her second kid in
Okay.
high school. So
Okay.
she was like, she just wanted to break that cycle. But then now she for a while she was kind of like, do you like boys?
Yeah,
But
of
she was
course,
perfectly
right?
fine either way. But she was just kind of like, she just wanted the rest of the family to know, because every once in a while they would pitch a guy towards me. Like, do I need to tell them to change genders for you? I'm like, no, no, no. That's fine. I'm kind of like, of course, when she said that, I'm like, I'm leaving for Ireland for a year. Like, I don't want to push anybody. I don't want none of that baggage,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of girls who didn't do as much abroad, because they're like, oh my God, my boyfriend, I just miss him so much. I'm kind of like, dump that. That's garbage. No, go have fun. Like, he should not be
Yeah.
holding you out for you going to the pub with your friends or going traveling. Like, I went everywhere. I did so much traveling by myself, which of course I didn't tell my mom until afterwards, because that would have given her anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No,
it's like,
that's good.
I feel so much better that I actually had the independence. And
Mm,
that's what I knew I wanted for myself, because with the journaling and with what I saw with everything else in my life with other people, I'm like, I wanted the independence of not having to be dependent on a guy,
mhm,
dependent on everyone else's approval,
mhm.
dependent on what society told me I couldn't do. I'm like, of course, everywhere I went was relatively safe. Like, Florence, Italy is safe.
Mhm.
Scotland was safe. It did help that I wasn't American enough for most of them to realize I was American, and I also was white passing. That helped
Okay.
it a lot in Europe.
Mhm.
But I understood that. I understood all that, and I made myself very safe. But I wasn't like stupid of kind of like, oh my god, I'm just gonna flitter around wherever these places. Like, yeah, I got in to Greece at like midnight. Like, no, I wasn't gonna walk around the docks waiting for my boat to come. Like, some people are like, oh yeah, just keep going. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go get a room and take a nap,
Yeah.
because I'm not gonna walk around at midnight in a foreign country alone as a woman. Like,
No, yeah. You just have to be smart about certain things.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, oh shoot, what did I want to ask? Oh gosh, I hate when this happens to me.
That happens
Uh,
a lot.
so yeah, do you still journal?
Oh yeah. I don't do it quite as much, but I do it enough when I have things. I try to do like 3, 4 times a week, but
Okay.
partially because a lot of the other time my podcasting is catharsis in its own way, because I'm talking about certain topics. Sometimes things I'm thinking about go into episodes.
Mhm.
And then sometimes some like the bigger issues and everything else get into my writing.
Okay.
Because I write mostly in nonfiction, but I am moving into fiction now too, which is its
Okay.
own thing I'm going to do because I can. And
Yes.
so some of like the bigger things, those things get into books. And so that's kind of like my way of working through things.
Hmm.
I still journal because I absolutely love it. And I also have too many journals. So I need to use them at some point. So,
Yeah, I have
but
a
if it,
thing for journals too. I see them, I buy them all the time. I don't I have a thing
I
for
used,
journals.
I
It's
used to
funny.
work at a bookstore. So I had a discount to get journals.
Even better.
Yeah. Like it got pretty bad where when my ex at one point is kind of like, do we need to like build a bookshelf, like a library in your room, just in another room, just so you can have journals in most of it? Because I literally have like 3 totes full
Oh, wow.
journals. That's not
Wow.
including what I have on this shelf over here.
Okay.
Yes. So journals
So
galore.
so that's a way that you connect with yourself and really get in touch with, your feelings and kind of hash things out, I guess. So do you have any other practices or things that you do to connect with yourself?
I do walking meditations.
Okay.
It does help when I do it with my dog, but he's also well trained enough that I can do that. If I had
Mhm.
like a pulley dog, it doesn't work. But yeah, I usually walk. It gives my I don't put headphones in. I don't like have any other distractions, and I usually let my mind wander a bit in the very beginning, just so it kind of just clears out everything else. But I definitely make sure I empty my mind as much as I can, and I do it at least like 5-10 minutes into the walk
Okay.
because it's sometimes I need to have my brain not thinking about something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I find for me that's when in meditation, just kind of emptying, like not consciously emptying. I don't want to give that wrong message, but just kind of focusing on the breath. It's where I'm able to relax the most and just center on, what's most important and block out all the garbage and things, that may be in your mind. And that's when I found that I've gotten, the most courage to do things or to talk to people about certain things or whatever. So anything that you can connect with your heart and your body and out of your mind, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, and for me, because I know some people, because they're like, I can't sit still long enough. They have ADHD, they're jittering and everything else. Like, I don't have any of those things, but having something physical for my body to do that's repetitive
Mm,
helps kind of alleviate all the extra like energy out of my body. Because then my brain could have like, because walking is easy for
yeah.
the most part. I still have moments where I trip over like the smoothest surface, but having that extra kind of movement, that release of energy helps make my mind rest better.
Hmm.
Which some people are kind of like, oh no, you have to be completely still and completely quiet and don't think about anything. Like, no, I just need to have enough stuff taking out of my hands so I don't that I can release it all.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's so important to do regularly. So tell me three things that you love to do.
Um, I love to read and write, which is a very introvert thing to do. Um, I love all things about dogs.
Okay.
Like literally anyone, if you want to have actually a conversation with me, if you start it with something about a dog, you got me for a while. Like I have learned everything about dogs. I know I can pretty much guess a breed because I actually like research breeds of kind of like, oh, I know what that is. I know what like a Malinois is. I know what the Dutch Shepherd is. I know what a Cholet Queetly is.
Oh my
And then
gosh, I have
like
no idea what any of that
yeah, like I
is.
literally will kind of like I see dogs. I'm kind of like that's part that and that. That's a that, and then like, oh yeah, that's a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and they're all kind of looking like, how did you? I'm like, I know dogs. Another thing is I love talking to people about their dreams. Like that's part of the reason why I started my podcast. That's why I love going to the different networking and like meetup events I go to. Is mostly for entrepreneurs, creatives, women's groups, and everything else. Like I want them to like I want people to tell me like I just that's just it's so fulfilling to me because I want to be a
Yes.
cheerleader. Like I want to be like please do it.
Yeah,
Like
me
let me,
too.
you want some direction? Like let me give you a link. Let me find you this. Like I will start giving you directions or give you like any kind of support because I would love people to be able to enjoy their life more. Because that's kind of my thing of
Yes.
like there's so much out there that we are miserable about and there's no reason to be. Like I am not a kid person, but I have a friend of kind of like, you need time to go take a nap. Like, give me a call. We'll schedule it. I will. Your your kid may not be doing something you want him to do, but he's out of your hair and he's alive. More of kind of like we're just having a Nerf gun fight outside, like not like we're not climbing something we're not supposed to be climbing, or like we're not going stealing anything else like my uncle did with me. That so like yeah, I'll give you a chance. I want people, I want women, especially women. I do push for women because we have it worse and we have the most pressure put on us
Yeah.
and the most contradictory standards
Yeah. Totally
put on
agree.
us.
Hmm.
But of course, there's other men, non-binary, all those people. Like I will push for that. Like I am absolutely in love. Like the straightest thing, I'm in love with humanity, but I do not like them at all.
I get what you're saying.
Yes. Okay,
So,
that was three things, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, no, that's awesome. If there's another one too, you can add. But no, I really like to ask people that because I remember not so long ago, and I used to get this question, what's your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I was so out of touch with myself and what I wanted, what I like to do, that I couldn't answer that question. And I think, there are people out there too who not really sure what they like to do because they're just kind of going on with what friends and family are doing and not really in touch with themselves. So I just like, yeah, to ask my guests that, to give me other people ideas and let people to get to know you. So
Yeah.
that was great. I thank you very much for coming on. I love having these conversations with people too and hearing, what they do and your story and your dreams and things too. I know we didn't get into your dreams today, but
Oh,
if people
I'm
want
working on
to,
them.
that's right. So, for all you listeners, if you're an introvert, if you're a black sheep, if you feel like you don't fit in, um, if you're not really where you're at today, where you want to be, you're not alone. There's so many people out there. And if you want to connect with Anang, where can people find you?
Honestly, the strangest one I was like saying is if you literally search my first name on all social media, I am the first one to pop up on all like five, six things
Really?
because I'm the only one with the name. Really,
Okay.
that's like actually out there marketing and everything else. But like, so Anung, Anung, that's the easiest one if you want to just have, if you can't remember anything else. But Courageous Creativity will have everything else. Um, the podcast, The Introvert's Bubble, or I Don't Want to Fit In.
Hmm.
Honestly, all those will have links to all my other stuff. Like I
Awesome.
always connect them all because I'm kind of like everyone is multifaceted. Like you will find my link somewhere to my photography. You will find my link to where I write somewhere else because everyone should be able to push what they love to do out there.
Exactly. I love it. Thanks so much, Anand. And
Thank
of
you.
course, all of her information will be on the show notes on my website as well. So have an amazing week. Thank you.